There was a lot of talk about the iPad Air 4 recently because lots of people got their hands on one. Sorry, I didn't order one because I've tried an 11-inch iPad before, and I'm sorry, just using Touch ID and the power button didn't look like it'd be very interesting for me, so you're not getting a review from this channel, but there's other great reviews out there. I mainly today wanted to talk about how I think the iPad lineup feels very distorted and kind of all over the place, and I was really hoping the iPad Air 4 would help bring simplicity and more consistency to the iPad lineup, and instead it just kind of complicated things further. And hopefully in 2021 Apple can actually streamline the iPad lineup a little bit better. Let's begin. So on one hand, you have the ability to create an iPad for everybody, while on the other hand, you kind of look at the lineup and think, what are they thinking? There's so much going on here. For one, we start off with the 10.2-inch iPad A12 chip non-laminated display, and then for $70 more, you get the laminated but smaller iPad mini at $400, also with the A12 chip, and both of these iPads have the headphone jack, both of them have lightning. But then upgrading from that, the $400 iPad department, we suddenly jump up to $600. Kind of a giant gap there, and at $600, you don't get Face ID, but you get no home button, you get USB-C, but no headphone jack, and slightly thicker bezels, no ProMotion, 60 Hertz, and now Touch ID is in the side button instead of the home button like it is on the cheaper iPads. But then if you're willing to spend more than $600, you jump up to $800 or $1,000, and then you get Face ID, ProMotion, 2 sizes, and again, USB-C, and this means we have 3 separate biometrics across the entire lineup. We have some with USB-C, we have some with lightning, we have some with the headphone jack, some without. We have the A12 chip on the entry-level models, A14 chip on the Air, and then A12Z chip on the Pros, so it's safe to say iPad lineup is kind of all over the place, and this is why I personally was really hoping the iPad Air 4 could have stayed at the $500 price point, because then it would have been closer in par to things like the iPad mini and the budget iPad, but instead they started it at $600, and on top of that, Face ID is still a Pro feature, even though on iPhones, we're seeing Face ID come out on cheaper and cheaper phones. Like the $500 XR has Face ID, but they couldn't bring Face ID to a $500 iPad for some reason. I don't know, but in my opinion, the iPad lineup needs to embrace USB-C faster. And I know that we just got the iPad Air 4 and USB-C is, the best port ever, but frankly, it took way too long for cheaper iPads to get USB-C, and the Air 4 ended up costing more than I thought it was gonna be. So we first got USB-C on the iPads way back at the end of 2018. Here we are, ending out 2020, and we only lowered the price of USB-C iPads to $600 instead of $800. I'm sorry, this ain't fast enough. I want USB-C brought to the iPad mini and the budget iPad as soon as next year, but of course Apple's not gonna do what I want. There are rumors and videos I've done on the past that Apple is working on a revamped iPad mini that would be around the same form factor but with thinner bezels, although the reports are saying it is still gonna keep rocking lightning, which once again contributes to that distorted lineup. And now that we're seeing the iPad Air 4 with Touch ID on the power button, I'm guessing that's likely what the iPad mini 6 is also going to be. Touch ID on the side and same old lightning, because the iPad mini is so small that trying to use the Apple Pencil 2 on a tablet that small is likely just not going to be very comfortable. So for that good old iPad mini, they gotta keep rocking Apple Pencil 1 with its stupid charging method, and I'm not super excited about that. But I am excited to see an iPad that has a fairly large display in a very small form factor. That's nearing like iPhone replacement to certain people out there. And I hate knowing that while we are getting iPad Pros next year, they're gonna have 5G in them. And you know how Apple feels about 5G, so that's probably gonna end up being 80% of the event. And unlike the iPhone 12s, I'm really hoping that 5G can just be a Pro exclusive feature for the iPads for a while. Can we not brag about 5G across the entire iPad lineup? Don't kill iPad battery lives that way, Apple, especially when the 5G modem on the iPhone 12 looks exactly like the Apple Pencil 2 smart connector. So if you start adding the millimeter wave modem on the side and we have the Apple Pencil 2 smart connector, people are gonna get lost. They're not gonna know how the heck this thing works. Do I put the pencil here or do I put it here? I don't know. The sensor's on both sides, so how does it work? I am just such a big diehard fan of Face ID that I wanted to see it brought to as many devices as possible, and maybe the budget iPad would be the last one to be rocking the home button button and the headphone jack. But if the next generation iPad mini is just going to be the Air 4 but smaller and still rocking Lightning, and they increase the price and the iPad mini 6 ends up costing $500, I don't know, that just makes it a lot harder to get excited for, in my opinion. And I would much rather see the entry-level iPads and the more affordable iPads start gaining more of those Face ID equipped features, because I'm such a big fan of it, using my iPad Pro every single day, being able to just tap the display and having it wake up and unlock, and using it for banking apps and that kind of thing. That's security without having to reach up and rest my finger on the power button and then wait a little bit longer for it to actually jump to the home screen. I've seen the videos, I've seen people using Touch ID on the Air 4, and it seems like an extra step. It feels like a little bit more clunky compared to Face ID, and knowing that we could run into that experience with the iPad mini 6 as well has me a little bit worried. But still, I will admit Apple has the best tablet lineup out of anybody out there, so I'm probably just nitpicking at this point. But it sounds like the next big step to bringing a bit more consistency to the lineup is removing the home button and adopting the iPad mini to be a bit more modern, except still rocking a Lightning port. But hey, at this point, if the iPads aren't moving towards portless and they're willing to adopt USB-C, I don't see why Apple can't just make an iPad mini with USB-C and then start selling a version of the Apple Pencil 1 that has USB-C instead of Lightning on the other end. I would kind of get behind that. I mean, the iPad mini is probably too small for MagSafe, right? So I doubt it's anywhere near portless, but it is certainly too small for a Magic Keyboard case, so they don't have to worry about the smart connector on the back. But I'm very curious to hear what you guys think should be done to the iPad lineup to make it more consistent, or what are you most hoping for in a next generation iPad mini? It's definitely sitting in a very awkward, weird space right now, because the last iPad Air update before the Air 4 got an iPad mini update at the same time. But now we just got an Air update, but no mini update, which is why the whole lineup just feels all over the place and confusing. So feel free to let me know your guys' thoughts. This is your Alp Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.